for example, in my coaching, I treat the student manager the same way I treat my assistant coach. It's all the same to me because they're human. We're all the same. And I think what happens is you're planting seeds, and everybody that's around you, you're planting seeds. And I think you want those seeds to grow. So in order to grow, you got to dig. And I tell our players all the time, when you struggle, you have to dig deep. You have to dig deep. Now, you digging to plant seeds, or you digging for a casket?
Welcome back to another week of Aspire Higher with
Coach Charles
and Yvana. Today we have an extraordinaire. This man is a man of impact, influence, and intelligence. He not only is a prolific basketball coach,
he's a prolific
player.
professional.
What else?
Yeah.
What else?
He's a powerhouse.
He's come on.
He could be running for politics. No, seriously, man. We are so excited. We're not joking because we have Coach Cuonzo in the flesh.
Yes.
Look, this ain't online. This man is sitting in the studio. If you don't know who this is, first of all,
intro.
Played in the NBA, played the CBA, coached Missouri State, coached Mizzou. Now, I have a little thing I have to say here, and you know it's coming. I wish he would have tried to go to Ole Miss.
Ooh.
We could have used that. But I ain't gonna hate on him. You see, we got the colors on, so look, it's all love here. Coach Cuonzo, my man, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you all for having me.
You're very welcome. We've been waiting to have you,
man. Come on.
I'm excited to be
Wait,
here.
I gotta do it. So okay, funny thing. Coach walks into the studio. We're looking at each other, just talking. The man turns the corner. I'm telling you, it's like the whole earth shook. He was like, how y'all doing? I ain't even gonna lie, I started sweating myself. I said, Idris Elba did just walk in the door.
Very right.
No. My wife said, who is this on his bass? You hear my voice.
Yeah.
Look, wait.
It has a little.
I can do it if I really want to.
You're struggling, okay? Drink some coffee. But anyway.
No, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, thank you, Coach, man.
Yes,
for making
thank you
time.
for being here.
Oh, yeah.
So, we talk a lot about leadership. We talk a lot about purpose. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of stories that you have in your career. Can you tell, before we get too deep into our conversation, a little bit outside of what we said about who you are?
Yeah. Well, I'm from East St. Louis, Illinois. Very humble beginnings. I wouldn't say poverty, but it's rough. And I always like to have my city shine in a great light. My mom raised 4 kids, had one at 16, 18, 20, and like 24. So, but she was a fighter. She was tough. It's actually her birthday today, so happy birthday,
Happy birthday, Mom.
Yes,
Hopefully
yes.
When this comes out, we'll let her see this.
Yes. But just really a special place for me. And everything I've always tried to do in my life up until I got married and had children was to shine a positive light on my mom. Everything I want to do is make her look good and feel good and be proud of her son.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Do you feel and sense that you've been able to do that?
I think so. And we'll get into a lot of stories, but I'll tell you one story.
Sure.
When I was, and you probably get into this, when I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, it's a form of cancer. I was 26 years old. I was playing professional basketball in Avellino, Italy. And we got back home, and I went from 215 pounds to probably 185 pounds. Wow. And the hardest thing for me to do, because it was starting to get out because of who I was as a basketball player, the hardest thing for me to do was to call my mom and tell her I had cancer. I don't know why it was so hard, but it felt like I was letting her down, which is strange when I think about that today. But it was so hard because she did so much for us, and I didn't want to let her down, but it was hard to say, but I eventually said it.
And it's interesting, man, your love for your mom. May I ask, what is it that made that the centralized core of who you were? Was it something that she did, or was it just something that was innate in you?
Well, I think it was something that she did, but more importantly, something she didn't do. She was a powerful woman, dropped out of high school after her junior year. But the thing that made her so great, in my opinion, as I got older and started to study, because I was considered what you would call a mama's boy, because I was always around my mom,
right.
you know.
Love
so
my mama too now.
Yes, but what happened was, as you get older, you start to study, and my dad is not necessarily in my life, and I love him, and I know where to find him if I was looking for him. Yeah. But so they didn't have a relationship, but they have a love for each other. So again, but she never said a bad word about my dad to this day. To this day. And how do you understand it as a 16, 17-year-old to say, I'm not going to speak negative about somebody? So that was power. And I think that was God's blessing and gift on her life to be able to not do that. And we have a great relationship. And now, again, though I'm still trying to seek a relationship with my father, I have a lot of love for him because of what my mom said or didn't say.
And man, is that powerful
really
and impactful.
beautiful.
We hadn't even gotten very far in the conversation, Coach, and you're already giving some wisdom.
That's right.
And that speaks volumes.
Yeah, absolutely. And how hard was it to pivot into an athletic purpose after your diagnosis?
That was tough because, again, you get drafted coming out of college. I was drafted by the Atlanta Hawks and played in the CBA, played some with the Milwaukee Bucks and also the Vancouver Grizzlies, but now they're the Memphis Grizzlies.
Right.
Yeah.
My college coach, he called me. So about 2 weeks before I was about to go back to play professional basketball in Europe, my college coach called me about an opportunity to be on his staff. Okay. And so at that point, I had to go back to college and finish up. Because when I was in college, I never went to summer school because I felt like I could make more money in the summertime. So in 4 years, I never went to summer school. Right. So me making more money every 2 weeks, getting a check and having the opportunity to send money home to my mom. Now, respectfully, she never asked me to send money home. Okay. So to send money home, whatever I could to do that. So I never went to summer school. But the transition, I did go back and play after having non-Hodgkin's lymphomas, but you talking about chemotherapy for about 4.5 months, which was painful. And the painful thing about that, more not so much what was going through my body, but to see other people when you go to the oncology office and all of a sudden you start out in November, the early December, when it's 23, 24 people, and all of a sudden your last day, April the 20th, your last treatment is probably only down to 11 people. Now, again, some went home and some really went to the heavenly home.
Right.
You know, so I'm always grateful for that. But in the process of going through the cancer, all I did was when I prayed to God, and I'll never forget, because they were hopeful when they did the biopsy and all, they were hopeful that it was tuberculosis. And my son Joshua was 4 months old at the time, and my wife Roberta, she was 24, I was 26, and we had just got back from Italy. And all I did, because they couldn't come in the room, it was tuberculosis. And all I did, I just prayed to God throughout that night. Just allow me to see Joshua turn 18. Wow. That was really my only prayer, because I just said to God, if you gave him to me, at least give me an opportunity to raise him. At 18, you figure 18, he can handle his own business at that point. Right. And Joshua today is 26 years old. He's a speech pathologist teaching in Boston. So
yeah, man, that's awesome. Miracle.
Yeah, so it's beautiful.
Wow. Well, then where did that desire and passion to get back into the game as a coach come? Right. Was it during that transition that you said, if I make it out of this, I want to give back? Was it something that was like, this is my path? How did you find that?
I never really had a desire to coach. Now, one thing I always was a leader. Like my college coach made me a captain as a sophomore at Purdue.
All right, now.
And in the Big Ten, I was rep probably 1 or 2 times in the history of the Big Ten. So I was a captain for 3 straight years. Wow. So I had the leadership qualities. Right. But I never had the desire to be a coach like that. And be truthful, when I left college, it was really no plan, because I think when you come from humble beginnings, when you're fighting to get out, there's not really 4 or 5 keys. You're just trying to make it and trying to find your way. But the only thing I always had in the back of my head, I got to make sure my mom is in a better situation. Now, she could function on her own, but I wanted to make sure her life was better. But really just to getting into the coaching part was my college coach called me with the opportunity. And I did it. And it's funny because one of the guys in my first year coaching, who was a good friend of mine, Carson Cunningham, he's one of the assistant coaches at Army, West Point.
All right.
Okay.
And he listened to a podcast and he said, man, I didn't realize, because I had cancer. Yeah. And a year or so later, I was on the staff at Purdue.
Just like that.
And he was like, man, I didn't realize that you had it that soon. Because I didn't complain about it. Just didn't skip a beat. Because what I realized in life, and I say this respectfully, nobody really cares in life.
I say it all the time.
So it's like, you got to keep moving.
That's right.
So it's like, you're going to make excuse about it. You're going to complain about it. You're going to keep pushing. So that's what it was for me. So the coaching part was just an opportunity. My college coach called me, and I'm grateful for that, because there were so many other men that had more experience, but he believed in me, and he knew my heart.
He believed in you.
Yeah.
How important is that?
Absolutely.
To have the one that believes in you and opens the door for you, And even with that, how have you seen in your athletic career the doors opening for you have opened for others?
Well, that was always my goal. when I became a head coach, but as an assistant coach, I was just going.
Okay.
And every time I coached a young man, it didn't matter where he came from, black, white, Spanish, it doesn't matter.
Right.
I was coaching a young man, I was coaching somebody's child.
That's right.
And so the biggest thing was that trying to put him in position to be successful in life and whatever that meant. So as you grow older, you start going and going and going from an assistant to a head coach. Now all of a sudden you have a blueprint. You're so far removed because you're getting older as well. So now you used to be big brother. Now all of a sudden you're the father figure.
That's right.
So now you're more or less coaching your sons. Though not biological, but they're your sons. So what would you do to your own children? And so for me, coaching was it was a competition, but more for me it was about, I never had to look up the scoreboard because I was already a winner if I made sure this young man get where he has to go.
That's impact.
And that's the end of the show. I love doing that. We have such great guests that they just go ahead and close it out for us.
It's over.
And join us next time on another episode of Aspire Higher with Coach Charles and Yvana Bailey. No, seriously, man. You know, my wife and I, we have a few businesses. One in particular is 3B Fitness and Performance. And the 3B stands for Building Beyond the Body. We always tell people that we are literally playing, especially when they're youth, for 20 and 30-year-old them.
Right.
Not for the athlete today whose dream is to be a professional. We are sincerely at this place, the point of contact to help them find and define their destiny. Yeah. And so we're always trying to mentor. People miss that. But I think the reason why I'm bringing this up, though, is because what you just said, I hope that you were listening and gathering, because this is not just about athletics. Right. You have to have the ability to see into what people say. That's right. Take the wisdom and apply it to the position you have, because it's a leadership principle. What many people miss, especially the higher they get, the older they get, they start thinking that it's about them. Right. I'm at the top. Right. Truth is I have a platform of influence to help anyone and everyone from the bottom reach here. That's right.
You preaching.
Hey, bro, that's what we do now, but it's sincere. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because your life, obviously, leading from this first point of conversation, is a lot of leadership. Yeah. What are some of the biggest leadership principles you've learned and hold to the tightest?
I think there are so many when you're talking about character, but before that, as I continue to climb the ladder, what I realize, power, P-O-W-E-R, power without compassion is dangerous. Because what happens when you're in that level of position of leadership, you have to have such humility. Now you can have impact, you have power in your voice, but you have to have humility, because there's so many people under you trying to learn, especially in a position of a college coach. Again, it's more as a father figure. You're a teacher. You're teaching these young men, your everyday walk, teaching this young man how to be a man, a husband, a father, a teacher, and a leader. So that's every day without even saying it. And then more importantly, you have other men that work for you as your assistant coaches. So you're teaching these guys the same way. But now, again, the flip side of it, it's a very lonely place in a position of leadership, because the accountability all the time has to be present. I'll never forget a story when I was my first year as a head coach at Missouri State, and we were struggling, taking over a program. And I've been used to winning all my life, high school 3 state championships, college Big Ten championships, and all that. And that's respectful with great teammates. But what happened, I'm sitting here, we were struggling, and I was in the bed, and I'm normally a guy, I'm up and at it. I'm in the office, whether it's 7, 8, but I'm up 5 o'clock. If I'm in the office, wherever I'm up, I'm already at it. So I was in the bed, and it's relatively late. I'm going to say 8 o'clock. And my wife said to me, "Is this how you want to show your leadership?" Because I'm normally a guy that's in the office ready to go, but because we were struggling, and now I'm sitting in the bed, the cover over my head, and so I'm telling you, and I could be exaggerating a couple minutes here. I think in about 15 or 20 minutes, I was in the office.
That's it.
No speeding tickets, but I got that. I mean, but what happened from that point, so that was 2008, and I never lost sight of that message.
Come on. And it came from the missus. Man, you got to thank God for an incredible spouse and partner that can see you through your mess, through your stress, whether you're worst or at your best. Come on, man, dropping bars.
I peeped that. Rapping the house.
Hey, but I love that. But speaking of that, I just want to make sure I honor you, Mrs. Yvana Bailey. I'm telling you, one of the greatest gifts in my entire life. I tell her every day on the way here, I was telling her how beautiful she is. But I just have to say it because I understand. Yeah. Because they will say things if you'll I say this respectfully, shut the hell up and listen.
My wife's a powerful lady. Now, I got lucky in a sense. So my wife, mom, was a pastor for years. Now, she didn't pastor the church, but she would assist in the church. So my wife lived that. She lived that growing up. But on the flip side of that, when I met her and I got saved my senior, she was like, "Oh, I'm so exhausted. Are you really?" Because she lived that. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
now again,
right,
she
right,
loves
right.
the Lord and all that.
all
Exactly.
But the way she was raised in it, you know what I'm saying? And her mother did a phenomenal job with her.
Right.
But now it's so-called, you got freedom, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's like now you getting saved. But again, I guess I'm a new age saved.
Yeah,
you know,
go ahead. Yeah, so are we, man. I get it.
but it was great. But she had a foundation, so she understood my growth in that process, and it really helped me because she had balance. And she's a phenomenal person. She's a very intelligent woman. She was in the corporate world for years, and just the power of her. When I became a head coach in 2008, we both sat down because we knew it was probably about to happen. So we sat down because now I'll backdrop and give this story. So for 4 years, my last 4 years at Purdue University as an assistant coach, I would drive an hour each way from West Lafayette to Indianapolis. So that was tough. So what we did, my wife and I, so we had 2 sons at the time, and then my last year, my daughter was born. So my wife would leave work for about 5:30 in the morning. I would take my sons to daycare, and then the daycare bus would take them to school. And then I would be in the office in West Lafayette no later than 8:30.
Okay.
And so what happened was we were sitting there because the opportunity to become a head coach was present.
Yeah.
And we sat down and we talked and we said, and she was in the corporate world, Eli Lilly, downtown Indianapolis.
Eli Lilly.
Yes, she had a phenomenal
that's
job.
a great stock to
Yes.
invest in. I'm
Yes,
telling you
yes,
right
it
now.
is. It is. And so we sat down and she just said, we talked, and I said, okay, in 3 years, if it doesn't work, meaning me being a head coach, then we'll go back to Eli Lilly because she had a 3-year leave. And then whatever you want to do, I'll go back and get my master's, however you want to do, maybe coach Little League, basketball, baseball, do whatever. And now she said, we'll follow your lead in this, and here we are. So,
Wow.
and it was the best thing for our marriage because it helped our kids because we were, I guess people call it a hamster wheel. We were just going.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
she up in the morning,
completely
5:30, and I'm dropping them off, and you're late at night, 2:00 in the morning, have to get home because I had to get home, even if it's snowing in Indiana. It snowed because she had to be at work in the morning. It was tough. We made it work.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure. And it also caused a pause with healthy communication and dialogue together, which I love. Sometimes when you take yourself out of the situation and look at a family unit and say, what's the best interest for my family? I mean, doors will open even more for you because you're willing to put them first too. You're willing to listen to your wife. You're willing to honor her and put yourself in that position. And all of a sudden after that, I know you're already elevated, but even more, the respect.
Yeah.
The respect from your family to look at you like, okay, that's a real leader.
Yeah,
he listens to us.
that's
He's
right.
effective.
That's right.
He cares. That's beautiful.
But you also took that leadership from I'm inquiring, I'm asking what
right.
your feelings and thoughts are, but here's the action we can take.
That's
and you
right.
took it.
That's right.
And that's something I want to talk about as well. How important is it to you in terms of the difference between the idea and the action?
Well, I think they're very important. And I think for my wife, and I'll go back to this part, when we were younger, we had to lean on each other for communication. And she learned at an early age, if we were mad at each other, let's talk about it amongst each other. Yeah, that's right. So we grew into it together. But when you're talking about the ideas, we can talk about it all day long, but the actions present itself every day. And I just think that's being present. And when you're talking about pursuing greatness, that's the everyday things. Can you do that? Can you be present? Can you be committed?
That's right.
And more importantly, are you self-aware? And I think that's where a lot of people struggle, being self-aware. Because again, if I, for example, and I'm talking sports, if I was a guy that was a driver, I'm constantly driving the ball, but my strength is shooting 3-point shots. And as a coach, you have to pull me aside. This is your strength.
Yeah. Come on, exactly.
Quit going in the lane.
Stay in
But
your lane.
oftentimes that's hard to receive.
Right.
Because even as a head coach, I've been in position, you got to receive criticism, not call it constructive criticism from the coaching staff. You got to receive, you got to embrace it, and you can't run from it. I think when you run from those things, you never grow. And I always tell people all the time, man, don't get so consumed with other people think about you. It's none of your business unless it's your family. Because in life, you're forever growing. And people always ask me all the time, what do you think your legacy will be and that sort of thing? I say, I don't know. I mean, maybe somebody will say when I'm in a casket because we're always growing.
That's right.
Yeah,
so you never know.
That's right.
And I'm prayerful that I'll continue to grow until they put me to rest.
Right. That's
I love
right.
that. So
How did you foster an environment in your heart to be able to receive criticism?
It's not easy, but I've always been a guy. When you come from humble beginnings, all you're trying to do is survive. I think that's more important.
That's right.
and being raised by a phenomenal woman, and you transition from a phenomenal woman that raised me into a phenomenal woman that's my wife. So now you're talking about two women that are accountable in life, that don't make excuses, that have fought through hard times, that scratch and claw, and they'll find their way without asking for help. So for me, yes, I mean, that's, you just hit it. You just hit it. So for me, it was just, you have to have it in your heart to help people, to nurture people.
That's right.
To be committed to receive it. Plus, as a coach, I would say to my players all the time, what you see, what's going on, because you don't have all the answers. And I've always been okay with not having all the answers.
Okay, coach.
Because in the sport, as long as you maximize your effort, we got a chance.
That's it.
I mean, that's why I try to read a new book every 2 weeks or every week, depending on what the book is.
The Flight of Your Life.
And I would read that.
Propulsion, yes.
I would certainly read that. The Flight of Your Life.
The Power of Propulsion. You'll see that on the screen, available anywhere books are sold, of course, man. But keep talking. I apologize.
No,
Just had to do it.
No, I like that. You got to get that book. But really, that's what it's about as a coach, receiving constructive criticism. But what I've found in my transition from when I came into coaching from 2000 up until, I would say, the last 5 or 10 years, young men, I'm saying young men because I coach young men, they struggle with that type of criticism because they've received, when you're some of the top players in the country, you receive so many pats on the back. And now it's hard to decipher which pat is real, which one is phony, which one is constructive in teaching. And so what I try to do is really to give them sound counsel. And what I've always said is what I'll give you will last a lifetime. And I think for most players that I've coached, and I would say it to their parents, allow me to be his eyes for the next 10 years. So that means you have to trust me with your heart because you can't see where you're trying to go right now.
That's right.
So just trust me.
Love that. Trust me. You hear that?
Man, but there's so many things there that I'm literally just thinking, which one do I want to just talk about a little bit more? For instance, when you were talking about being able to receive, but spending all of your life getting pats on the back. And we're in a culture, and this is not to disrespect anyone's experiences, where we're all looking for likes and we're looking for value to be given to us. And oftentimes, as you said, to the opposite, for minimum effort, minimum value. But we want all the accolades. Coach, how do you deal with that in your own life? But how would you, if you had to speak right to the camera, to a person listening, how would you encourage someone to, as you said, to be more self-aware? And how can they better allow themselves to be receptive to criticism so they can grow because they've been pat on the back for so long?
Well, I think that the first thing is you have to love yourself. And that's easier said than done. You have to love yourself. You have to love the person in the mirror. And then what you also have to do, you have to minimize what you see on social media. Because oftentimes you see, if say you're a young man, you don't have a lot of clothes, and you see somebody with nice clothes and they function, you want those things. So now your stress levels, you rise to the top. I want to get there. How do I get that? Well, you have to focus on how do I love myself? And you have to look in the mirror and say, I'm okay with who I am. And then you also don't be afraid to raise your expectations.
Come on.
So if you want something, you got to reach and go get it. And then the other thing, don't be afraid to pivot and do something else. Like, for example, if you're a young man that everybody wants you to be a basketball player because you're tall, well, if you like to sing, go and sing and do what you want to do. But I think for our parents, and I've prayed about this for years, if our government some kind of way can limit, if you're 18 and younger, with your social media impact, was all just positive energy. If we can do that some kind of way, it was all enlightening, educational, positive, all of that, and stay away from the negativity, because what happens, you see the stress levels rising of young men and women, suicide rate is wrong.
To the roof right now.
I read something a couple years ago, now I could be way off now, but it said like black men in America, the suicide rate went up like 100% or something like that, just a high level, because the stress is so high, the jobs, I'm trying to opportunities in my neighborhood don't present themselves. I mean, I grew up in East St. Louis, Illinois. When I was growing up, it was 100-some thousand people. It's down to 18,000 people. So now, where are the opportunities? We don't have a lot of grocery stores. So now where do I get food from? So now you talking about a state of depression, and that's anxiety, that's stress level. So now all of a sudden, in order for me to feed my family, I got to find a way to feed them.
I got to find a way to feed them.
So I think if we can find ways to show more love, and again, going back to what you're saying, 'cause I know I can get off track here just going, but you just got to find a way to show love, appreciate yourself, and lean. Not everybody believes it, but for me, it's leaning on God, and that's where I find my strength. That's where I find my power.
Understood.
And I think if you can trust in God with all your might and lean not on your own understanding, that's so hard. That's so hard for a young mind, because they're just trying to find their way. And you'll be okay.
Proverbs 3. That's
Oh,
it.
yeah.
I love that. I love it.
Indeed.
How did you find your inner strength with God in how to love yourself through the battle of cancer, through multiple transitions, through losing the identity of the athlete, but pivoting into coach? How did you find that strength and love for yourself with God?
Well, the joy for me of being married and having a child, that felt good to me. I'm married. So now, because now I'm actually part of paying for our mortgage on the house. I'm actually part of seeing my son grow. So, I've never been a guy that played the sports for the accolades and fame and the chest bumps and to stick my chest out. I've always moved with a level of humility. I think I'm tough as any guy when I need to be tough enough. But I've always tried to move with a level of humility. And for me, it was just being able to have a family, to love on a family, to grow on a family, and then just present myself in life to know that I can help so many other people with my voice. And then the hard part is, can you speak truth? And then can you have character?
Come on now.
Because everybody talks about character, have character.
Right.
It's funny. I hear a lot of coaches talk about character, and it's like, man, but they're not living it, and it's none of my business. But like I used to tell our players all the time, your character will be tested. And can you weather the storm?
Absolutely.
And it's like, and it's be tested with your appetite. That's for
That's
drugs,
right,
alcohol, sex.
Right.
When you receive a level of fame, can you handle it? And then when you get power, now we'll see if your character be tested.
Oh, yeah.
Can withstand.
Sure.
So,
man, I love
that.
it. No, I mean, and it just took me for a minute. I didn't know if he was going to break something else out there. I mean, this man is really dropping this wisdom, man. Yeah. You know, you said a few things that were really powerful, and I want to take the conversation back just a little bit because the generation that you're coaching now has changed, right? Yeah. You mentioned something earlier about taking care of mom, and that was at the very top of the show. A lot of these kids, I laugh. I think about Deion Sanders, where he talks about growing up and playing multi-sports, and he was saying now as a coach, he's recognizing these kids don't have the same passions and desires. When we look at your generation, and we like to kind of include ourselves, our generation of athletes before NIL and before these contracts and before all this other stuff, we had a mission to take care of our family. We wanted to get our parents and put them in a better situation. Exactly. Now, they're not concerned or even thinking about that. No. Has that been something you've run up against recently, and how do you challenge that mindset?
Excuse me, when I coach, and most of the young guys, I would say 70% of my team were probably guys that came from humble beginnings.
Okay.
And what I found in the last 7 or 8 years. So when I was coming out of high school, you were scratching claw trying to find your way. You were fighting, and you were respectful of authority. It didn't matter if it was a custodian, a coach, a teacher. You respected authority. Yes, you were taught that. I think in the last 7 to 10 years, maybe the young man when now it's okay. And I'm only talking basketball now. So the grassroots of basketball, you get afforded a lot of things when you want a top player. So you got all kind of sneakers. Yeah. Sweatsuits, you travel all over the country, in some cases all over the world. So you have access to a lot of things. You have a cell phone, so you have a lot of things. Now, though you as an individual have a lot of things, you still live in those humble beginnings.
That's right.
And then what happens when this young man gets on a college campus, because he's been afforded a lot of things, he loses sight of home is still home, where there's a lot of struggle. And now if you don't have the same drive and determination to be great, to be a CEO of a company or be a professional player, then there's a problem, especially if you don't get your degree. And I think that's what's lost, that the kid from the humble beginnings, he doesn't have the same fire burning. And the background that you left is still the same.
That's right. That's right.
Talk about it.
How do you help them fuel that fire?
Yeah.
Honesty, that's the best way. Now, again, for a young mind, honestly, they want to feel good.
Yeah.
I mean, they want to feel, just like the likes. Nothing wrong with the likes, but they want to feel good. Yes. So the constructive criticism, how do you present that?
Right.
And so for me, it's presented every day with actions, things that you see. Let me help you do this. Here's what I want you to see. You right here, right now. How do we get you here?
Right.
Well, this is how we got to get you here.
Right.
It's a level of discipline. Now, the young mind, they struggle with that word, which is one of my
Yes,
favorite words.
Yeah.
But the young mind struggle with discipline.
Yes,
and can you consistently do the mundane to perfection?
That's right.
And then can you be accountable to be on time? So as simple as going to class every day, can you do that?
That's right. Remember those
my college coach said to me one time, he said, if you go to class every day, you will put $100 into your bank account. He said, if you miss class, you take 1,000 out.
Wow. Great analogy.
That's a deep principle.
So again, the commitment to be present and to be reliable and accountable. And I think that's hard if you haven't been taught that. So for me as a coach, I've had a longer rope, so to speak, on guys that struggle in their home life, especially if I knew the home life.
Yes,
like I had a coach, for example, call me yesterday, and he wanted to transition a kid out of his program because he just felt like the kid wasn't doing what he's supposed to do, and he gave him ample amount of time. Right. And for me, that's always hard to say, yes, go ahead, X him out.
Of course.
Because I know where I came from. Because all of a sudden he goes back to that, then what else does he have?
Yeah, that's right.
But also understand that, coach, you have a job to do.
That's right.
So those things are hard. So that's why I try to get young men. And now that I'm not on a coaching staff, I have to do a better job of reaching out to so many young men all over the world, especially in those inner city areas, to help them understand, hey, man, let me help you make the decision to make it a lot easier for your life. Because you can be a CEO of a company. You don't have to be an athlete to be successful.
That's right. Mindset shift.
But I think too, you brought up something really awesome there, and I'm glad that came out because you're talking now about future, right? Purpose. There's more in you than what you do. You even said it earlier. You said somebody may say you should play basketball because you're tall, but you have a passion to sing. There's a scripture, speaking of Proverbs, raise up a child in the way that he should go.
That's right.
Right? When he grows old, he will not depart from it. Right. Because you should be able to see in that person, there's something there. And I'm going to help direct them to that. Right. That's literally our business. That's what Aspire Higher Enterprises does. But I say that because there are leaders that watch this show, not just coaches. We have business leaders, CEOs, we have executives that listen to this. Right. And a lot of the principles you're saying apply to business. Right. And I think that if you're listening, the hope is that you're actually looking as the seat that you're sitting in as the coach, right? And I'm going to bring another point in a minute, but you're the coach. Right. You have a job to do, yes. You have some performance measures you have to meet, metrics, KPIs, and all these things. But are you measuring the level of impact you're having on your team? Are you consciously and consistently evaluating whether or not the people that are beneath you or under you or in your tutelage are taking from you what you can give them to propel them into what they're meant to do? Now watch this. And do they believe because of you, they're made for more? I think that's what you've been expressing, Coach. And that's my wife loves to say these words, and I want to be the one to say it now. We honor you for that. Absolutely. Because a person who understands it is living a mission. Right. It's not the money. It's not just the message. There's a mission. Now, the other point I want to bring up, and it's a point we make in our book, is about being CEO of you. That's right. And most people have never been taught to look at themselves as an entity. Right. And to see that they have, if we ask the question, and we do speaking, all over the United States and different places. And one of the things I ask people is, if you were to look at yourself and evaluate the life that you've led, the mission that you claim to live, if you were to evaluate yourself as CEO of YOU, would you let yourself go, or would you keep yourself?
If I was evaluating me.
I wasn't asking, but since you're asking, I'm going to make sure you answer. Go ahead. Yeah, if you would evaluate yourself.
Would I let myself go? No, because I think God has blessed me with the ability to lead, but with humility, but also strength when necessary. For example, in my coaching, I treat the student manager the same way I treat my assistant coach. It's all the same to me because they're human. We're all the same. And I think what happens is you're planting seeds, and everybody that's around you're planting seeds. And I think you want those seeds to grow. So in order to grow, you got to dig. And I tell our players all the time, when you're struggling, you have to dig deep. Yeah. You have to dig deep. Now, you digging to plant seeds, or you digging for a casket? So there's a difference.
Hold up.
But you got to dig.
We might have to have my man Kalen put that on the screen. Whoa. Oh my gosh. Whoa. He's like, you got to dig deep
of life.
But now let me ask you a question. Are you digging to plant seeds? Are you digging for a casket? Coach, that's about, look, got tears in my eyes. That's about one of the most powerful thoughts I've ever heard dropped. And we'll have to credit him. I may use that off the stage. But I'll make sure I say credit Coach Cuonzo.
That's deep.
That was powerful.
That's deep.
Whoa, man. But you know what else you said? Yeah.
I'm in shock. I'm like,
you're one of the first people to leave us speechless, bro. But one of the things that you also are speaking about, and I'm really grateful as well, again, that CEO concept. When I was at the University of Mississippi, where I attended, of course, and like I said, I coached there for a little while as well, one of my former mentors and coach there, he put me on a book called How to Become CEO. Very small book you can read in a day, literally, little thing. And one of the chapters in it, I'll never forget it, and I've never left it, and I even talk to her about this often, is you have to treat the person that you think that's on the lowest on the totem pole as if you were the CEO of the company. And the lesson I learned from that was because my wife and I say this often, you don't know if those people have ears in rooms you've never been in.
That's true.
Come on.
Because sometimes it's that security guard or it's that team manager or it's the new employee.
The trainer.
Just put it in whatever perspective.
That's right.
That goes in that corner, say, man, I really like that guy and he always respects me. And you don't know.
You don't.
Again, so are you planting seeds? Or are you digging to plant caskets? Because sometimes the way we present ourselves literally pushes success right out the door.
That's huge.
That's powerful when you say the people that you don't know. And I go back to my mom. My mom was a maid at the Mayfair Hotel downtown St. Louis.
Wow.
And she was also, at night, she worked at a place called Celebrity Rooms, kind of a sports bar, not necessarily sports, but a bar back then. And she was a bartender there. So again, when you're talking to a maid, that's humble.
Of course. Of course.
So I've always respected the space, but also when I realized that there's a God. So it wasn't so much as trying to get approval from man. It was trying to please God because I believe there's a God. So now for me, it's not so much as what you think about me or what somebody else is like. Man, if I treat this person wrong, how does this impact my relationship with my father?
Jeez. Deep again.
Let's just let it sit for a second.
Yes.
The flight of your life.
You better talk about it. You better talk about it. We're on one right now.
Well, listen, I'm telling you, I'm so grateful for just this opportunity to speak with you, Coach Cuonzo. I mean, the wisdom that you've given, the thoughts, the vulnerability even, and honestly, the humility.
That's right.
You can feel it and sense it. You know, you can discern it. And that's what we love the most is when you can be in a room with someone and you can sense that there's a sense that they have that when you're in the room, you're like, it's not about me.
That's right.
It's about the impact I am here to make.
That's right.
And I'm grateful for that, man.
That's right.
Oh, thank you. It just, really, for me, I have 3 children, and you live life, and the way life is lived nowadays, you never know when it's your time. So for me, what I always think about is if I'm on the bed in my last days, or will my kids be in the room? Will they be in the room?
I hear you on that.
So that is my fight to make sure they continue to get what they're supposed to get out of life.
Right.
Learn and study life and live it the right way. That's what I try to tell them. Now, you got to blaze your own path and all that. But will they be in the room when it's all said and done? And I'm hopeful that I did a good job as a father. And of course, my wife and Michelle, hopefully she's in the bed with me. We go together. But it's just, that's it. Because again, that's what life is. I think we get so consumed with everything instead of trying to control our own space. If I can touch somebody next to me, I've done my job. And each one teach one. We pass that thing along.
Each one teach one. How many one-liners today, huh?
Man, that's why I love having coaches.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Coaches, these guys study quotes.
They live it, though.
Do you know, by chance, I'm asking on air, do you know Coach Vince Walden?
That sounds familiar. Vince at Texas A&M.
That's right. One of
Vince
our greatest friends.
Vince
and
good man.
I had to ask because Vince is much so like that. And he's impacted my life in so many ways. So many quotes. And he quotes Invictus, right off top of the dome. He's one of those coaches. But
good man.
But yeah, and I'm just saying that to say, even as I'm sitting here, the beauty of knowing that I've been in the presence of great men.
Yeah.
And I love this. I say this often. Even in my journal, sometimes I write in my journal things that I found wins or successes for the day. And sometimes I'll write in there, like yesterday, that my wife was in the room.
Amen.
When I was present to have this or see this or do this. Yeah. Because she gets to see it too. Right. Because I know that this is blessing her just as much as blessing me. Because she too is in the presence and gets to see great men or men trying to be great.
That's right.
Who are sincerely saying it, but then authentically living it. And man, what an impact we're making on our kids that we don't even have yet.
Yeah.
That's a blessing. Right. You guys will be great parents. I mean they're going to have a lot of knowledge.
Shoot. Wisdom is the first word.
Well, Coach, do you have any closing words you want to give? I mean, it could be anything. And I know Yvana wants to share something. So by all means, just want to give you some space first.
Not really. Just I appreciate you having me. I think this is a great show. And I will say you guys have phenomenal energy on the
Coach.
show. You know, I've learned in this segment of sitting with you, the energy and the passion that both of you have.
Thanks,
I really
Coach.
have,
That
and I will continue to lean on the both of you just to study and continue to get better in this world. But it's been a pleasure for me.
Thank you so much.
I love it. And thank you for being honest and authentic with yourself. You may not be in the room with us, but we can feel the gravitas in this room alone because he's done the work in his life. And that's everything. As a coach, we have clients at the top, in the middle, wherever they are in life. You can feel the weight of someone when they walk in a room, okay? It is heavy in this room.
I'm going to start doing how y'all doing?
Oh, okay. Here we go again. You know, at least you inspire him. Okay, he's gonna work on this all day and all night. But
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But I sincerely appreciate you do the work. You've done the work. You're continuing to do the work, and you cannot have credibility when you speak to someone if you don't do it first within yourself. So thank you for honoring yourself first. Thank you for honoring God. Thank you for honoring your family. And then athletics. He didn't put athletics first, not one time. Not one time. I love and respect that so much. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Right, Coach. Well, guys, this is another episode of Aspire Higher with Coach Charles and Yvana Bailey, our good friend, great friend now for life, Coach Cuonzo. Where can people find you, Coach? Websites, Instagram, any social media?
Well, Coach Cuonzo, and also It All Counts podcast. So
It All Counts podcast. That's right. You just launched that.
Yes.
Congratulations, Coach.
You.
All right. Impacting the world.
Thank you.
With that voice. With that deep voice.
All right.
Okay.
Oh my God.
All right, guys, you know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe button, hit share. If you have friends, anyone that you know will benefit from this, as they always do, we definitely want you to like, subscribe, hit some comments. And of course, don't just share it with your athletic friends. Share it with your leadership. You know what? Just hit that email real quick and let them know, I think you might like this, especially someone that you work with loves sports. They're going to get a lot out of it. And we hope that you did too. But until next time.
See you next time.